Hi, I'm Kaylee. Welcome back to my channel. So this video is going to be about all the books that I read in January through February of 2022. Now, I get most of my books from the library, so I don't physically have all the books. I only have 2 of them, but that's why I'm looking at my phone, because I have the list of the books that I don't physically have with me. So the first book that I read this year was The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. Now this is a middle grade book about a village who is clouded by fear, and every year they have to sacrifice the last born baby to a witch in the woods in order to protect their town. But the witch in the woods isn't actually evil. Instead, she collects the babies thinking that they're abandoned and delivers them to neighboring villages to be adopted. Except for one time, the witch accidentally gives one of those babies drinks from the moon, and that causes her to be enmagicked. And this baby is our protagonist, Luna. And so then the witch raises Luna as her own. Later on, there is a man who is determined to kill the witch and rid his village of this curse. Secrets are later revealed, causing Luna to not only face her own powers, but the cloud of evil that is lurking among the village. So this book, I found it was filled with a lot of enchanting imagery. I just felt that it was, if you could see the book, you would understand that this is a dense book, and it did not need to be that thick. There's a lot of things that you could have just shortened or cut out that didn't need to be there, but overall, I would recommend it to the right age group for it, but it's not a story that is going to stick with me. So with that being said, I gave that one a 3 stars. The next book that I read was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book is about a man named Linus Baker who is a caseworker and just kind of going through the depressing motions of life, doesn't really have anything to live for except his job. And then he gets assigned to this high-level secretive case to go to this orphanage where there are 6 magical children who are rumored to be able to cause the end of the world. So he has to go to this orphanage and evaluate it and see if it is okay to keep running, or if, as it is, the end of the world is near. And so there on the island, everything changes for Linus. Secrets are revealed, the politics of this world come into view, and Linus realizes that there is more to life. The life that he truly wants and desires is within reach if only he is able to grasp it. And let me just say, I love these kids. I'm a sucker anyway for a group of character-driven kids who are going on an adventure, and that's exactly what you're going to get from this book. Not only that, but there's also a dash of romance in there. And I have to say that Lucy is a clear favorite. I think not only to me, but you can tell that he's the author's favorite as well. And it is such a sweet story about finding where you belong, and I gave this book 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend you. Alrighty, and so the next book that I read was a nonfiction Christian book called Live Fearless by Sadie Robertson. She probably know her from either her podcast, Whoa That's Good, or Dancing with the Stars and Duck Dynasty. This is a book all about how Sadie overcame her own fear and the tips that she learned along the way through a Christian perspective about how you too can overcome fear in your life. And I myself have been going through a rough season, and this really did help me in learning how to give a new perspective on how to think and go about fear in my own life. And so even if you're not a Christian, I definitely think there is wisdom to be learned throughout this book, and some tips if you too need a little help in overcoming fear. So the fourth book that I read was The People We Keep by Allison Larkin. Now this book I read for the book club that I have, and this book takes place in the 90s, although I have to say this cover kept making me think that it was taking place in the 70s for some reason. So I constantly had to be reminding myself, no, this isn't the 70s, this is the 90s. I think too because this book centers around a songwriter named April Sawicki, and it reminded me of Daisy Jones and the Six, if you read that book. So if you like Daisy Jones and the Six, give this one check this one out. Anyway, this book follows April Sawicki, as I said, a 16-year-old songwriter who's living in Little River, New York, and she lives in this motorless motorhome that her dad won in a poker match. She feels as if her life is going nowhere and nothing has really ever been her own. And so one night after she gets into this big fight with her dad, she decides to steal a car and run away. And so she ends up in Ithaca, New York. See April going through all these different, meeting all these different people and going through all these different trials and tribulations, trying to figure out where she belongs. The book is about finding where you belong and the people who make you want to stop running. I gave this book a 4 stars. For some reason, it reminded me of Waitress, the musical / movie. I think because it has similar tropes into it, but I can't pinpoint why it reminds me of that, but that's all I could think about while reading this book was, wow, this reminds me of Waitress. That, and then, as I mentioned before, Daisy Jones and Six. So if you're a fan of either one of those, then I would recommend checking this book out. And then the last book that I read, I also do not have, but it was Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. Now this was my first Colleen Hoover book that I ever read. I mean, I have to say, I was skeptical because of all the hype around Colleen Hoover, because I am typically the type of person that if there is a lot of hype and it's very popular, I probably won't like it. I don't know why, but I just tend not to like things that are insanely overhyped. But I have to say, I kind of get the hype now. It was really good, and it was so much fun. Highly enjoyed my time reading Heartbones. Now, Heartbones is about Bea, who the summer before she goes away to college, something happens and she has to move in with her estranged father into Texas. And there she is trying to deal with a new family dynamic. Then also she runs into a neighbor, Samson, who at first this seems there's nothing in common between the two of them. They can't stand each other. But over time there is this draw because they're both drawn to sad things that means that they can't stay away from each other. So Bea and Samson agree to keep their relationship in this shallow end and only are going to do a summer fling, but of course hearts can be fickle just like the ocean, and they are suddenly drawn out to sea into the deep end. So with that being said, now that I've read a Colleen Hoover book and I really liked it, please let me know what Colleen Hoover book I should read next, because before I picked Heartbones, I went and I read all the descriptions of her different books, and this was the one that seemed the most interesting to me. If I liked Heartbones, what other book would I like? And also, how come this book isn't talked about the most? I know I haven't read any of her other books, but why are the other ones so popular and no one talks about Heartbones? Because it deserves to be talked about. I haven't been this into a romance since I read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Also, great book. Read that book if you liked Heartbones or vice versa. And then while I was reading Heartbones, it reminded me of a book that I read a long time ago called Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson, and I think this would be a great option if you are for the younger audience. So those are all the books that I read in January and February. Let me know in the comments what books you've read or are looking forward to, or what books now I should read if I like these books. Thank you for watching, it means a lot, and I will see you in my next video.